Morning, everybody.
Wait.
Ah.
Go.
Good morning, everybody. We are now starting the session, but not completely. We are giving a few minutes to our audience to join the webinar. So if you can bear with me, we'll wait for a few minutes and then start. We had a lot of registrations today, like more than 200, so it takes a bit of time to have everybody in the chat, in the session. Another generous minute, and then we start. Okay, so I think we can start now. We are already at 11:33. Good morning, everybody, and many thanks for joining this dialogue on urban farming. I'm Emmanuel Idier. I'm a senior economist working at the Investment Center of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, in short, FAO. And this dialogue is the first of a series of 9 webinars that are organized in the context of a joint research that FAO is conducting together with its partner, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or EBRD, on urban farming. So why urban farming? Why researching that sector? It's not new. When I was a kid, actually, I was living in this typical suburban environment where around me it was full of market gardens, you know, providing most of the vegetables of my city in France, Nantes, for those who know. So it's not new, but it's a sector that is evolving very fast with a lot of new technology involved and also a lot of interest generated from all parts, from the research, from the urban planners, obviously from the business community, and interestingly from investors. So that's why we're researching that sector, to take stock of where we stand and also potentially to identify investment entry points. Now, a little word on why these dialogues. I think that part of it is a bit selfish. We are very interested to have your insights. You are all today in the audience people directly involved with urban farming, so your views on our conclusion will be very precious. The second objective is a bit less selfish. We very much hope to create a community of knowledge, sort of networking platform that we will develop over time for you to share views. We know that some of you are involved in urban farming in contexts where it's really a rarity, so you are keen to reach out to people, advisors, researchers, peers from other countries. The session today will have 3 parts. First of all, I'll give the floor to my colleague Victoire, who will tell us about the main trends that we've started to pick up through our research. The second part will be more the discussion itself. I'll first give the floor to 3 universities with which we are collaborating for this research, and then ask questions to part of the audience. It will be organized around 4 questions. So that's how it will be structured. I won't talk too much. Our time is very limited today, so we'll all try to speak shortly. And I'll now give the floor to Iride Ceccaci from the EBRD, who will tell us quickly the motivations around this research about urban farming. Iride.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It is my pleasure to welcome you all today to this e-dialogue on urban farming. I'm Iride Ceccaci, and I head the advisory of the agribusiness team at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. As you might know, we do invest in private companies in the agri-food value chain from farming to retail, but we support companies as well with capacity building and advisory services. Together with our long-standing partner, the FAO, we look at sector trends and innovative areas to make food system green, digital, and inclusive. In this context, we are looking at urban farming as a new trend, an innovative trend that honestly, it's already here. Food systems have been put under stress over the last year worldwide, and I can see most of you are really global participation here, a lot of people coming in this e-dialogue from many countries. And you know that urban agriculture and short value chain emerged as a very important aspect that cannot be overlooked, and not only in time of crisis. The team will say which are the real data on this, but when we think that 80% of food will be consumed in cities by 2050, we grasp how the linkages between rural and urban areas are at the center of the food system, and cities are becoming important players to support farming initiatives. Through this project, we at the BRD, we seek to get a better understanding of the investment landscape, opportunities, players, and stakeholders. So dialogues are a great opportunity for bringing us all together. We have here today universities, companies, providers, architects, retailers, agri-food companies, and other experts that are working in this sector. So thank you very much for being here with us today. We are delighted to have the opportunity to explore further partnership with you and collaborations. I'll pass the floor to FAO colleagues to present the work done to date and the next step to follow. Thank you for joining and looking forward to participate with you to this engaging discussion. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thanks a lot, Iride. Maybe Jacopo, you want to add a few words on that, or we move to the main session?
No, I think we move to the next session. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Just to reinforce the point on the networking opportunity, the fact that we will be together for another 7-8 events, and please enjoy the session as much as possible and use the chat for your questions. And floor is yours.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'll pass the floor to Victoire, and Victoire will tell us about the main trends that have been picked up by our initial research and its preliminary findings. Victoire.
Many thanks, Emmanuel. Many thanks, Iride and Jacopo. So here I will be provide you with a snapshot of the key actors that we have identified in the sectors. As well as the key highlights and current trends that we have observed. The methodology is very simple for our early findings that we will be sharing from now. It is based on the development of a stakeholder mapping, but also an online survey that some of you have completed already. So in brief, and based on the stakeholder mapping, we have identified so far 640 actors in 82 different countries, including farming companies with commercial purposes, technology and input providers, as well as universities, research centers, civil society organizations, and community gardens. In terms of investment, we could identify already like over $1 billion of US dollars invested in the sector, based on 40 companies that we have identified so far. Based on literature review, actually this amount could be even multiplied by 4, reaching $4 billion of US dollars invested. And it is expected that in the future, these investments will increase exponentially. When it comes to where are those actors, so here just to say that urban farms with commercial purposes and providers are mainly in Europe and North America. We will see it in a few minutes. And we also have an interesting growing number of actors that we could identify in Asia, Near East, and Central Europe and Caucasus. When we look at who and how, let's say, urban and peri-urban agriculture activities are conducted. So as we said, we have farming companies, input providers, universities, but also other actors involved, such as investors, headhunters, lead municipalities, retailers, architecture studios, and real estate. As we said, North America and Europe as the two main regions in which we have the highest number of actors, with the highest number of technology and input providers present in North America, and in Europe, the highest number of universities. We also have interesting growing of actors identified in the rest of the world, such as Southern and Eastern Mediterranean zone, but also in Asia, with increasing number of urban farms. Now, if we look at urban farms specifically, again, we have a predominancy in Northern America with the US and Canada. As for example, we could identify more than 50 urban farms only in the US, with almost like half of them located in California and the state of New York. Then in Europe, these urban farms are mainly based in France, Belgium, and Netherlands. And in Asia, it's mainly between Singapore, Japan, and China. 75% of those urban farms are growing crops indoor, but we also have 25% that either use outdoor or outdoor protected modalities, such as greenhouses, for example. And here, more specifically in terms of farming modalities, it is mainly hydroponic that we have, but also soil-based, aeroponic, and aquaponic. Now, if we look at the big picture from the historical perspective, you can see that technology and input providers were always here since the very beginning, but you have an exponential creation of urban farms since 2010 that you can see, and this is expected to be more and more in the coming years. Now, if we look at which type of crops urban farms are growing, and in terms also of markets, you can see that 67% of the identified farms that we have are growing leafy greens. Usually those farms are also growing in parallel herbs, vegetables that include also mushrooms and microgreens. What we have seen so far based on the results of the survey is that usually those the highest revenue shares are made through retailers, hotel and restaurants, which means that those three channels are maybe the most profitable for urban farms. And usually those urban farms sell on local markets, so in a very specific area, but you also have 40% that either sell at the international level or even international, so meaning they have different points of production internationally or in different areas of the same countries. In terms of input providers, here we have a highlight on the type of services that those providers are offering on the market. So the first three ones are grow facilities and hardware, design and installation. Based on the survey results, the most profitable services identified were grow facilities and technologies, but also consulting and training services. Because here you also can see that providers are offering a very diverse type of services. And usually those providers sell on international market for more than 50%. When we look at so emerging investors and let's say investment highlights, more than 95% of the companies that responded to the survey were saying that they made the latest investment in the last 12 months. And most of them agreed that the emerging investors that we have in the sector are venture capital, private and individual investors. Most of them also, so meaning more than 50%, are expecting that property developers and real estate will invest more and more in the sector, either for urban infrastructures or to convert unused spaces. And when it comes to the role of public actors and municipalities, here this point it remains under discussion. So meaning that some respondents agreed that local and public actors we have a more prominent role in the future, but others don't know actually. Here we have, I'm putting here again the link to our survey. As I said already, some of you completed it already, but if you have not yet, it would be great also for us to nourish the global study that we are currently undertaking with EBRD. And thank you very much. Thank you, Emmanuel. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Victoire. I mean, I hope it was an interesting presentation. Again, it's preliminary trends, and we'll refine our research over time. Now we'll be moving to the discussion itself. So a bit of rules of the game. First of all, I can see that the chat is very active, which is good. Our colleagues Victoria and Tamara are monitoring the chat. What will happen now is I will give the floor to a few selected people in the audience, but you can continue to ask your questions in the chat, and at the end we'll have the occasion to answer a few questions, and we'll try to answer the others later on after the session is finished, as it's obviously difficult to answer all the questions now. So before I move to the 4 questions that I mentioned before, I'll give the floor to the 3 universities with which we are cooperating, 3 distinguished professors. Aissam Gijakli from the University of Liège in Belgium, Francesco Orsini from the University of Bologna in Italy, and Professor Leo Marcelis from the University of Wageningen in the Netherlands. And I'll ask them to tell us how they define modern urban farming, what are the key features of this new sector, how it differs from, let's say, old ways of farming in cities. But before I do that, I think I'll ask Victoire to show you what you have answered to this definition question through the Mentimeter. And as you can all see from the screen, what you think about when you are asked about urban farming is the keywords are local, future, so certainly that relates to the technological aspect I was mentioning, and of course food. I mean, that's the main purpose of farming. But I can see also things that you have in mind: resilience, circular, linked to the environmental impacts. Now I'll ask one of our professors here to tell us about his definition of urban farming. Maybe I'll start with Leo Marcelis from the University of Wageningen. Leo?
Yes, thank you. Yes, sorry, at first I had to unmute myself. Yeah, so when I talk about urban or peri-urban agriculture, I'm thinking of production of food in a city or very nearby a city. And then the question is, how do we produce the food? What type of production system? Strictly speaking, it could be Could be any. It can be in the open field. It can be on a roof, and it can be indoor in a building. And I'm focusing mainly on how to grow in buildings, so without solar light. But then we get plants where we have plants will need light that will come from lamps, from LEDs. And in these type of systems is where we see now a lot of new developments, and which is an upcoming type of production system. What we can do in these production systems is that we have a full control over the whole production process. We can control all the growth factors. So I think that's an important key aspect. So if that's now also already about what key aspects is, what I see is, first of all, that we can grow it anywhere. So very nearby where the consumers are. We are not dependent on whether there's fertile soil because we do it in a building. We are also independent of the weather, or more in general of the climate. So very local production, nearby consumers, and a very high level of control, such that we can say, well, on that specific day, I will produce so many kilograms of the food, and also of a defined quality. And I think that are some key aspects. There are a number of sustainability aspects which are very good. There are also some drawbacks. So where it is very good and is the use of land, which I think is an important sustainability aspect. Transport distances will get small. Waste will be much less, not only because of less transport distance, so less storage losses, but also because we can make it a better product with a longer shelf life, but in particular also losses of the product directed harvest, which will be minimum.
Thanks, Leo. Maybe as we need short answer, and also you need to leave some other points for your.
Okay, so many sustainability, a number of more aspects are very good. Energy use, I would say, is a bottleneck that is high. Also, the costs are relatively high. So that, I think, costs and energy are key issues to be addressed to further improve.
Now, very good. I think you've touched on many features of what we call modern urban farming. I've changed the order just to make it more difficult for the speakers. But now I will ask Aysam from the University of Liège in Belgium to add maybe to what you've just said, Leo, in terms of defining urban farming, modern or urban farming. Aysam?
Yes, thank you very much to give me the floor. And I agree with the vision of Leo, but I think that my definition will be a bit broader. I think that yes, when we speak about urban agriculture, it means that we are growing plants, rearing animals in the city, around the city, and that the products are directed to the cities. But for me, it's not only a question of production, it's also a question of transformation and distribution, so processing and distribution. Because you are in the northern countries, US or Europe, when you are in a city, it's very expensive to have our activities inside the city. So economically speaking, you need to not only produce, but also maybe process and directly distribute. You can have also multifunctional activities or education and other things, and not only production. So this is, for me, the key point for the definition. A second point is, yes, sustainability is very important. I recorded 15 different benefits for the social, around 10 for economic, and around 10 also for the ecology. So again, in our northern countries, it's not only a question of production, but it's more a question of the benefits that you will bring by developing the activities. And then there is a contrast between northern countries and southern countries, because in southern countries, they never give up urban production in the city. Maybe your graph don't take into account the yield and maybe only the number in terms of economy, but in terms of yield, there is an important production for many, many, many years in Africa, for example, or in Asia. And we lost this during all the 20th centuries in Europe and US, and it's coming back now. The third point I want to highlight is the systems and the techniques. We can have, it can be low tech, it can be high tech, it can be soil crops, it can be soilless crops. The most important point is to select the technique considering the context, considering the social economic context, and also the pedoclimatic context. It's very important, and it's a really case-by-case study. You cannot apply just a receipt for each town or for each context. You really need to be case-by-case. And my last point, it's concerning economic models, business model. For the moment, with your graph, we see that there is a trend of investors and investment in urban agriculture, but I think it's a key point to create and to think about sustainable business model and economically viable model. This is also why, in my view, it's not only production, but also processing and distribution.
Thank you so much, Aysam. I think you've indeed broadened the definition, touching on processing and maybe looking at different ways of producing. So thank you for that. Now it's more difficult, I suppose, for Francesco to add to what our speakers have said. But Francesco, what would you add in terms of your own definition of modern urban farming?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Emmanuel, and thanks to Aysam and Leo for bringing in already all these aspects associated with urban agriculture. Not an easy task now to add more, but I would say we should consider also the legal frameworks that are associated to urban agriculture and that might either foster or limit the development of the sector. Then we have like land use regulations, quality and safety standards, or certification schemes that might be adapted from those that are already existing for traditional agriculture to the new forms that urban farming is taking. And this certainly links also to the level of technology that we are using and developing for the urban farmers, and also should consider the dimensions of sustainability also in a way that urban agriculture allows to close cycles to use urban resources. We have a lot of waste, organic waste, nutrients, water, energy in the city, and urban farming might allow to bring in these elements into the overall sustainability of the food production. And business models have been said already. I would also consider the users. Urban farmers are very different, and we have those that are mainly targeting food production, but then we also have hobby, leisure farmers, therapeutic functionalities of farming, social workers, and all these have their own economic dimension, which might not be so evident immediately, but they will all affect the overall city economy or poverty spread, etc. So I'd suggest that also for assessing the sustainability, we evolve toward a life cycle thinking that allows to understand all the benefits and drawbacks and constraints that are associated to each farming system typology, to each region, and this will allow to actually understand what are the potentialities of the sector.
Thanks so much, Francesco. We've had now the research talk about what we call modern urban farming, and I think we'll move now to the, I would say, practitioners. We have a very rich audience today. As Iride was saying, we have people that are actually doing urban farming, that are providing technological solutions to others. We have architects, we have urban planners. So I'll start with my round of questions. And the first one is really around the motivations of people that decide to start cultivating vegetables in city context. And for that, I'll pick the mind of Paul Rousselin, who is the CEO and co-founder of Peri-urban. Peri-urban is a company based in Paris. I could see from their website that they are doing both the production and also the provision of services and advice to other companies in this context. But before I give the floor to Paul, I'll ask Victoire to put on the screen what you have said about that question. So the motivational part, why do you move to cities for farming? So I can see that, yes, one aspect is certainly to reduce or to simplify the supply chain. And what comes strong also is obviously to have an impact on the environmental footprint of food chain. That's what we're expected. The third one is also to have probably a better use of urban spaces. But now let's ask Paul, if you're online. I can't see you.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, you're here. I can see you now. So Paul, what's your motivation? Why did you start moving to city context for farming?
First of all, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Victoire, to be there. So for me, why move to urban farming and why move to urban area? The answer is quite. Actually, if you are not in urban area, you are in natural area or in rural area. Right now, for the natural area, you can't. It's difficult to access to it, and I think it's a good thing. So remains the rural and urban area, and basically rurality is decreasing because urban is going up and up. So the question for me is not just why going to urban farming; it's more how we'll go to urban farming. For us, actually, we do urban farming mainly in city center of cities, mostly on a rooftop. And what is important to see is that when you are in an urban ecosystem, you are not in a rural ecosystem. The urban ecosystem is very specific to cities. You will be able to access to water very easily. You will be able to get some warmth from the building, and you will also have very less. You will not need to use pesticide. And so you will be able to work on new kind of farming, on new kind of spaces that you will be able to resell in the area, and also you will be able to decarbonate your farming.
Thank you, Paul. That's concise, but I think I got some of your motivations. And actually, it seems that there are some good objective technical reasons to do farming in cities. So now I'll move to the second question, which is about the preconditions for entering that sector. After all, cities are already supplied by other players. So what are the preconditions for a company nowadays to move into that business? And for that, I will ask Sudhanshu Sarangwala, who's the Chief Impact Officer at Infarm. Infarm is a company based in Germany. I think you started in Berlin, but now you have sites a bit in different cities, and you are doing a variety of productions. I think Victoire even told me that you've moved into mushrooms, and soon or already done, you will be moving to strawberry. So Sudhanshu, what are the preconditions for a company to move into that business, which is again already served by other suppliers?
Thank you, Emmanuel and Victoire. So the way that Infarm looks at it is that in terms of preconditions, so sustainability at 3 levels really has to be a demand from the consumer, from the retailer, and from the city. So from the consumer, it's basically, we've seen lots of research, which is well over 50 to 60% of consumers seeking sustainable food choices. So that precondition must exist. The retailer must reflect that because they are also serving the same consumer. And the third is the city. As we talk about increased urbanization, cities are looking to remake themselves. How do you reduce the supply chain? How do you create more secure food supplies? How do you create more climate resilient food supplies? And therefore, the sustainability at those three levels becomes quite important. The other one that we look at in terms of the preconditions to enter the market is really about the appetite of the investment market. And we saw some of that in your research. And if we look at the overall agri-tech sector, of course, it's even bigger. Urban farming is a subset of that. I think overall agri-tech was over 10 billion in the first half of this year. And they need to be able to bet on this, bet on it big in terms of the sustainability, because if you're not going to make a difference if it's only done at pilot level. So like we've been financed and we are now in over 40 cities in 11 countries, we need to be able to do that kind of scale. And then the third is, of course, as a precondition for a company to bring it to the market is in terms of the technology and the marriage of that with the R&D of crop science. So unless you don't have the agricultural side and the technology, whether it be Internet of Things or the artificial intelligence systems that you're bringing together, that becomes almost a necessary precondition to bring this to the marketplace. That's the way that we're looking at it, Emmanuel. I hope that adds some value to the discussion. Thank you.
Very, very much so. I mean, it's interesting to look at the demand, not for the products simply that you produce, but people that want some sustainable vegetables. So you need to have that market already ripe, I suppose, in the places where you intervene to be successful. I think that's very important, but also have the other parts of the equation ready, like the investors and the cities. So thank you very much for your insight on these preconditions. Now I'll move to the next questions. As in most cases for new businesses, I suppose the road is not always easy. So my questions will be around the challenges that typically a company moving into urban farming would face. And for that, I will have two members of the audience talking. First of all, I'll have Tushia Garibashvili, who's the founder of Space Farms. Space Farms is an urban farm based in Tbilisi, Georgia. I saw in your website that you do a very interesting mix of productions, including herbs like Mizuna that I never heard of, but interesting. And you also provide services to other companies on urban farming. And the second person intervening on this point is Maciej Jakub Zabatsky, who's got probably a different angle, as he is the founder of the MGZ Architecture Studio and also the president of the Laboratory for Urban Research and Education in Poland. But before I give the floor to my two speakers now, I'll ask again Victoire to put the Mentimeter on the screen. So in terms of challenges, interestingly, what comes up from you, from the audience, is the policies and the institutions around you that are not always favorable or that do not simplify your life, at least. That comes quite strongly as the first constraint. Secondly, and quite logically, the possibility to access financial resources to finance your project. That's also quite logical in a new sector. Usually banks are not so excited about new things. And third one that I can see clearly here is the production costs that are still quite high. So having seen what you collectively think about these challenges, I will ask Tushia. I can't see her, but if you're here, Tushia, can you tell us what you see as challenges for your company?
I'm here.
Echo, here you are.
Hello, everyone. Thanks you for inviting me as one of the participants. So before I carry on talking about the questions, I will tell you how I started my activity in urban agriculture. Back to 2017, I started thinking about how important growing nutrition food close to us. So then I created Space Farms. It is indoor vertical farming and it's controlled environment agriculture project in Georgia. I want to highlight that we create first vertical farming inside hotel and it restaurants which are located 5-10 meters away from our farm have opportunity to consume healthy and fresh harvested leafy greens every single day. So as for my project, I want to now answer of your question and share with you some of the most important ideas that I have discovered in my field during the challenges with unstable environment. So first, how important is to produce fully nutritious food near the customers and how important is transparency. I think that the process of growing plants indoor give growers greater control over the plants, and it's controlled environment agriculture. It's big challenges for us, but now we can grow crops locally close to our customers and have an easy accessibility to buy directly from our farm. Thus, we reduce our food miles and greens can be harvested and delivered on the same day to our customers. I can example how we work. We offer residents a greater variety of fresh greens. Like you mentioned, it's mizuna. We also grow arugula. We grow edible flowers, microgreens, fresh basil. We have now outside winter and nobody have in Georgia fresh basil, but we have fresh basil. And so the demand of the customers, it's more start growing up. So of this, we save packaging material, transportation costs. This will reduce really the carbon footprint. And I think that we minimize the loss of quality and quantity of production. We save fossil fuel and labor time because we work very close to our customers. So I think that we are now part of growing movement driven by consumers worldwide who demand more transparency and better quality for suppliers. I think that transparency is a core of changes because it makes us notice issues often kept in the dark. Yes, we all deserve to know where our food comes, where it's growing, how it's growing. And urban farming and indoor farming can now show how our greens grow, how because we start from first stage. We sowing, yes, next we have seedlings, next we have full harvested plants, and everything it's happened in front of your eyes, yes, because you are growing in urban areas. So I think that agriculture sector in Georgia now needs adaptation of practice, education, innovations in farming, establishing connections between the youth and modern innovative farming, which will allow revolutionize, I think, the agriculture sector now in Georgia.
I will ask maybe to go maybe to one challenge that you have faced in your business, also for the sake of time, as we have quite a few speakers.
Yes, I think that's challenges, environmental challenges that I have, and I am proud of this, that we have automated systems, that we reduce the carbon footprint, we reduce the water save, yes, we recycle water, we recycle the 20 liters water per hour every day. And when you calculate per year, you can see that you save the more than 1 million or 2 million liters of water. It's important for our environment that we are care about it. So I think that this step by step, Georgia now sees that how can we produce healthy food in the city center, and it's very cool, I think.
Thank you. I like, because actually you've turned all the challenges into opportunities, but I could read in your mind that you were very keen into having a very transparent product, like in the way things are produced, and turning around all of these environmental challenges into an actual opportunity. So maybe the next speaker will actually talk about.
Yes, of course. I want to have the next answer about the challenges that I have, but the limited time, and I will give the next question for another person.
Thank you so much, Tushia.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let me move now to Maciej. Again, it's difficult to see people because we are quite many today. Maciej, are you online?
Yes, yes.
Yes, good. So you have probably a very different angle because you're dealing with architecture, urban planning. But in your mind, what are the main challenges that urban farms are facing to establish their business and conduct their operations?
Yes, so I don't know. Can you hear me? Is it on?
I can, yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, because yeah, well, thanks for having us here. We're an architectural and urban design office, but also this urban think tank, which is based in Poland and in Warsaw and in Brussels as well. So we kind of like try to build a network. We are also like focusing specifically on the region of Central Eastern Europe. And here, like once we analyze, and we've been dealing a lot with the urban farming projects, we see some kind of conditions, challenges, such as social challenges, financial, political, and environmental. Social, well, mostly urban farmings are seen as an add-on by people. Something that you could add on the balcony and not a huge problem solver, which actually should be, the attention should be put on big areas, which are very popular in specifically, for example, in Poland, where you have a small city of 90,000 people like Opole, where we worked, and we have a branch office there as well. And this small city has 22 hectares of an urban farming in the city center. So basically, Poland and this region is covered with urban farmings, but they're low-tech, vast areas. And in many places, they already exist, but they are closed communities. So this is another social challenge, basically, that that we are facing up with once we work with this topic. And of course, like the financial aspects, the lack of support, financial support to implement some ideas that we have, urban strategies. So we sometimes we finance from our architectural and urban design our work that we execute, and we build showcases with our private funds that act as attractors. Like, for example, we built a pavilion and an urban farming nearby that we have to our office, and we're locally, located in the city center of Warsaw, in the capital, and not that far. We have 5 minutes walk. We have a 6 hectares urban farming. And there we built a circular economy pavilion that harvests rainwater, for example. And this we did from our private funds, because sometimes it's just hard to get the financial support for it. It changes drastically once we do projects for private investors, like office business parks, for example. There, since they're funded by banks, mostly foreign, then ESG, environmental social governance, is something essential to get better loans, bank loans. And we are implementing a lot of urban farming concepts in those office business parks. And of course, like the political challenges that we have as well. Local governments, well, mostly the urban farming plots that exist, they're called allotment gardens. They're found, well, actually not only in Poland, but then in other places. You might see a lot of big areas in Stockholm or Berlin or any other place in Europe that faced famine after the war. And these places are normally, you have this trendy word urban farming, but then allotment gardens, they exist. They just have to be mapped and saved, because if not, like here in Poland, they're being transformed into housing developments. And of course,
for the sake of time also, because I see it's already 12:20 and we have 10 minutes and quite a few questions to run through. I'll probably stop you there because I already picked a few ideas from your intervention, like having the urban authorities to be proactive and maybe have an evolving mentality regarding urban farming in a modern way. So thank you for your intervention. I'm sorry for that, but I'll have now to give the floor to other speakers that, by the way, will probably, complement what you said. As I will have now Halil Beshkar, who's I hope I pronounce your name correctly, who's the co-founder of Plant Factory and Urban Farm in Turkey. And the company is doing both production and provision of services. And I will also have Andrea Guglielmi, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Dash Farm, which is an urban farm and tech provider in the north of Italy, in Rovettero. So I will both ask you to be super short in terms of the challenges you've faced to invest in that business. Please, like a few minutes, because then I'll have my fifth question, and we might take a few questions from the general audience. So Halil, challenges that you face in terms of investing in that sector.
Emmanuel, Halil is having connection issues. He's trying to reconnect. Please, let's move to
okay, so
the others.
I'll move then to Andrea, if Andrea is online.
Yes, I'm online.
Okay, excellent. So Andrea.
Okay, very shortly, because I
very shortly, yes.
I have a few time. So first of all, I'm the CTO of Dash Farm. It's a company that is building a vertical farm in aeroponic system in high pressure. And this is one of the reason why we chose this technology is related to the challenge and the opportunity we see. So we would like to build a solution that will increase efficiency, reducing cost of installation, reduce running cost, and mostly deliver something that is modular and light. In building something in the city, there are problems related to weight and also to waste of energy, waste of water, and waste of food. So our solution has the target to arrive to the customer in a very short time in a very efficient way. In terms of investment, in terms of challenges that we have to face, there are some problems in legislation in Europe in order to achieve investment, because at the moment is more research than production. So even if we see the number of the companies that are using this system, we are talking of hundreds of companies. And the idea is to move to something that will be thousands of companies. And to do that, we need to spend a lot of money in terms of investment and create a new solution in order to be able to deliver in a very fast way system able to cost less, consume less energy, and consume less water, because also moving water within the city is not a small issue. So this is the main issue that we are facing at the moment. Problems, but opportunities or challenges, let me say, related to the way in which it's possible to run research in Europe according to this main request that we have from the market.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I mean, I remember from what you've just said, the 2 points that, first of all, yes, probably the legislative, maybe the institutional system is not yet in place for full scale up. By the way, the next question will be about the role of authorities, so we can have a bit more on that. And also what I hear also from you is there's a need to, I mean, obviously the more we will scale up, the more the cost will become applicable for the market. So thanks for your insight. Unless Halil has joined, I'll move to the, no, I can see Victoire saying no, so I'll skip.
Yeah, you can jump. Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump to my last question. Again, it's quite a crowded agenda. And it's precisely about the role of public authorities. By that, I mean municipalities, but also in some cases, I suppose also national authorities, and how they can support or on the contrary, impede the development of that sector. And for that question, I'll ask Bruno Renders, who's the General Director of the Economic Development Council for Construction, but also the Administrative Director of the Institut de Formation Sectorielle du Bâtiment. That would be a vocational training institute dealing with the building sector in Luxembourg. So Bruno, I can't see you, but I hope you are online.
Excellent. Is that okay?
Excellent, I can hear you.
Okay.
So yeah, the question is, yes, how do public authorities can encourage or on the contrary, make things more complicated for people moving into that sector?
Okay, thank you for this introduction. I would like to just give you some more information about what we are dealing with urban farming issues in Luxembourg. We had the opportunity 2.5 years ago to study with some of your partner, especially Sami Zizaki from the University of Liège, to study on behalf of the Luxembourgish government the proposal of a national strategy related to urban farming in Luxembourg. And the idea was to implement how it's possible to make urban farming possible in Luxembourg, and which are the obstacles, breaks, and sometimes the problems that we can identify. We have made this job, and parallelly, on the parallel of this study, we are also involved in the Interreg project, European one, which is called GROOF, for greenhouses, which the name is Greenhouses for Reducing CO2 on Roof, which is exactly the subject I would like to go further on. And within this project, we just finished the construction of the first rooftop greenhouses in Luxembourg, which is called FRESH, and which is a pilot project to identify, to monitor all these subjects that we are dealing with, and what your previously speakers are dealing with also. So in this direction, we have the opportunity to identify all the national point of view about the administrative and regulation related, for example, with urban planning. We had the opportunity to identify some problems. Therefore, I would like to just to summarize this kind of problem of role of the public authorities in 4 different levels. First of all is the administrative regulation. For example, there is a big gap between the traditional construction normative requirement that you can find in the urban planning requirements, and when you would like to go further on the construction of a greenhouse, on a rooftop greenhouse, it is, for the moment, it's a little bit more than R&D project or pilot project than in the normal construction way. That will say that we have to make sure that the administrative requirements should be more flexible, more agile, to be able to go further on this construction of greenhouse, for example. This is one point. There's other point about the administrative regulation. For example, you have some problems when you go further on the static requirements for the construction, especially if you go further on a rooftop, which should be high. There are some problems to identify, for example, with the insurance. Is it possible? Is it covered by who? By what? This is quite practical problem. This is the first level, is administrative aspect. The second one is the financial aspect. Even there is a flexible regulation, we have to take into account the fact that we are more on experimental some projects, especially related with the hydroponic and urban farming facilities. And there is a very important need from the authorities to push this kind of project by investing with public grants. That is the first very important point, but it is not sufficient, because when you are looking after this fresh project that we have, we get some important public grants coming from the Ministry of Environment. This is very, very nice and very helpful. but it is only helpful for the decision-making process. After this decision-making process, you have also the operating step. And for this operating step, there is a very important need to support financially those who are those promoters of urban farming facilities, and to just make sure that during the first transition of the first operating step, they should be also supported financially. Otherwise, there is no chance to be able to get the yield that someone or some of the other speakers speak just before. This is a very important point. And our project, FRESH, is just there for monitor all these aspects: administrative, financial, environmental, and I will come back on the environmental aspect. And to be sure that we will take some conclusions and to propose, for example, some adaptation of the legislation in Luxembourg, for example. That's the second point. The third point is about the environmental issue, and therefore we have to keep in mind that if you want to make urban farming in Luxembourg in 2021 without any public grant from the investment, without any public grant coming from the operating step or phases, it would be very difficult to be rentable. That's on the just economic point of view. But Essam Jijaki said that we have to take in account the urban farming facilities just like an ecosystem, with some other functions that only the agriculture production. And that's exactly what the point I would like to go further on. If you compare, for example, if you put on the table the possibility to spare some CO2, which is the subject of our group project, and to be able to spare or to capture some CO2 and to put them in the vegetables into your urban farming facilities, you will have another income, which is absolutely for the moment not possible. And the idea is, for example, just to give you an example, the global
to conclude, maybe
just to give you an example,
we are already over our seminar time. So
to conclude that administrative regulation should be more flexible and agile. The public support on the financial point of view should be there for the investment, but also for the operating system. And therefore, you have to put, for example, the carbon dioxide valorization. You can put that as a new income. This is a new business model, but it should be also conducted, led by the public authorities. The private sector should be involved, but we have to make a public partnership around public-private partnership on it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bruno. And again, sorry for accelerating, but I mean, this reflection on what the role of public authorities, municipal or national, is very important. Probably it's context specific. You live in a very regulated, probably environment in Luxembourg, but the points are valid, like permits, public financing when possible, and the possibility to have an extra income through the valorization of carbon. So thank you for this very interesting insight. We are already past the webinar. I knew that it was going to be very packed. Okay, so we agreed before that we maybe can run over 10 minutes late, but I will then just ask Victoire if we have some super pressing questions from the audience that appeared in the chat. Maybe we can take one. Victoire.
We do have a question from Agnes. I think that maybe it's best if Francesco answers. As not to have the urban word who can be restricting, some people talk about proximity farming to include what is being done inside the city, but also in the suburb, as it's a continuum, as you're saying. What do you think of this vision? So the question would be a proximity farming as a term.
Yeah, probably the difference between urban and peri-urban. So is it Francesco answering on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, this is a very important question, and I would say we have opportunities for farming both inside the city, but also in the city fringes, and where logistics becomes easier, certainly as compared to within the city center. So I also support the adoption of the term proximity farming for including these dimensions. What is important is that this type of system needs to contribute, so their function on city sustainability and resilience, and the relation they can have with the customers. So how close, how shorter is the supply chain in my view.
Thank you so much, Francesco. We're already late, so I would suggest that we've kept record anyway of all the questions, the good questions put in the chat, and we'll answer separately after the webinar. It's a bit frustrating, time is short, but again, the idea of this first seminar was an intro and give a sense that there's a community of people that are working in this sector from different parts of the world, and that can basically interact. So we'll work on that throughout the webinar series. And without really further ado, I'll pass the floor to my colleague Jacopo, who will now introduce what's going to happen next with the further sessions.
All right, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, everybody, for staying so long. As Emmanuel said, we are going to have a number of additional e-dialogues, this time very technical and focused. We have here a proposal. I will not go through for the sake of time, but you have already saw it in your invitation, and I think you have expressed an opinion already into the Mentimeter survey. The idea is to understand how much commercial urban farming can really advance and can be more marketable. So we have a number of e-dialogue proposed, all very technical. You are all free to, we will send the invitation to everybody for each of the e-dialogues, more or less, and you are free to join where you feel more interest. Of course, this is part of the networking, also of the networking, and we will see how to further support in the networking side. As you see, we tackle a number of points. These are basically our own main question marks that we would like to see and review with you. And of course, if there are more, or different topics, we are very happy to hear your opinion. You can send us also additional emails, comments in the chat, and others, because for us, the most important now is to understand the relevance and place of commercial urban farming. So the farms in cities, and that are established for profit, and of course the benefits that in general municipalities and all the, let's call it for the time being, additional benefits, the co-benefits that urban farming of all type can bring to municipalities and urban areas. Emmanuel, I'll give you back the floor, and I'll thanks everybody.
Thank you, Jacopo, and above all, thank you to all. I mean, we've reached a number of 108 participants today, so I hope it gives the sense that there's a bit of a community interested in the sector. I won't say much more. I think, again, the idea was to give you this sense of networking, and also to give you some insights of what's coming next. Of course, the next discussions will probably be more in-depth and more focused on specific topics. So on that, unless there's any pressing comments from anyone here, I think I will close the session and hope that you will be as many as today in the next webinar. Thank you so much. Arrivederci.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Then
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.